The lights on the control panel flashed red as the alarm rang through the monitoring station. Ensign Kyla jumped from her chair and ran to the main screen. Her fingers moved quickly over the buttons as she tried to understand what was happening. "Captain Jiwan, you need to see this," Kyla called out. Her voice was shaking with worry. Captain Jiwan walked over from her office. She was a tall woman with blue skin and large eyes that showed she cared deeply about helping others. The Galactic Federation had chosen her to lead this station because she always tried to help ships in trouble. "What do you have, Kyla?" Jiwan asked as she looked at the screen. "It's a distress signal from the Volani trade ship Harmony's Dream. They're in the Kepler system about 6 hours away at full speed. The signal is very weak and it keeps cutting out." Jiwan read the message on the screen. The words made her heart feel heavy. The Volani were one of the most peaceful species in the galaxy. They were small, gentle beings who only wanted to trade and make friends with other worlds. They had no weapons on their ships and trusted that others would help them if they were in trouble. "Send word to my ship. Tell them to prepare for immediate departure," Jiwan ordered. "And try to contact the Harmony's Dream. Let them know help is coming." Kyla worked at her station, but her face showed worry. "Captain, I'm not getting any response from them now." The signal just stopped. Jiwan felt a cold fear in her stomach. She had seen what happened to ships when their signal suddenly stopped. It was never good news. 2 hours later, Captain Jiwan stood on the bridge of her ship, the Stellar Grace. It was a Federation cruiser built for rescue missions, not fighting. The ship had strong shields and fast engines, but its weapons were meant only for defense against pirates and small threats. "Captain, we're getting close to the Kepler system," reported her first officer, Commander Hayes. "I'm picking up some strange readings on the long-range sensors." "What kind of readings?" Jiwan asked as she looked at the screen in front of her. "Energy signatures that don't match any Federation ships. And there are metal pieces floating in space where the Harmony's Dream should be." Jiwan's worst fears were coming true. "Take us in slowly. Keep our shields up and weapons ready." As the Stellar Grace moved into the system, the main screen showed a terrible sight. Pieces of the Volani trade ship were scattered across space like broken toys. But worse than that was the huge ship that floated nearby like a metal monster. "That's a Krex mothership," Hayes said quietly. Everyone on the bridge knew about the Krex. They were raiders who attacked peaceful ships and took prisoners to sell as slaves. Their ships were covered with weapons and looked like they were built only for war. "How many Krex ships are there?" Jiwan asked. "Just one mothership, but it's huge. At least 2 kilometers long. I'm reading massive weapon systems and heavy armor. Captain, our ship couldn't even scratch something like that." Jiwan knew Hayes was right. The Federation built ships for peace, not war. They believed that talking and helping others was better than fighting. But the Krex only understood violence and fear. "Are there any survivors?" she asked. Hayes checked his instruments. "I'm detecting life signs inside the Krex ship. It looks like they took prisoners from the Harmony's Dream." Suddenly, a new signal came through their communication system. It was weak and full of static, but they could hear a Volani voice. "This is Captain Thylos of the Harmony's Dream, if anyone can hear this. They have taken our children. Our young ones are scared and hurt. Please, anyone who can help us." The signal was cut off by the sound of rough voices speaking in the Krex language. Then there was only silence. Jiwan closed her eyes for a moment. She knew that the Volani children were probably being prepared for the slave markets. The Krex were known to be especially cruel to young prisoners because they could be trained to work harder. "Captain, the Krex ship is moving toward us," Hayes reported. "They've seen us." The communication system came alive with a harsh voice speaking in broken Federation standard language. "Federation ship, you are in Krek's hunting grounds. Leave now, or we will add you to our collection. Your ship will make good scrap metal, and your crew will bring good prices in the slave markets." Jiwan felt anger burning in her chest, but she also knew that her ship and crew would be destroyed if they tried to fight. The Krek's mothership had enough weapons to destroy 100 ships like the Stellar Grace. "This is Captain Jiwan of the Federation vessel Stellar Grace. You are holding innocent civilians against their will. Release them immediately, and we will not report this incident." The Krek's response was loud laughter. "Little Federation captain thinks she can order the mighty Kreks around. You have 10 minutes to leave, or we will show you what happens to those who interfere with our business." Jiwan knew she had no choice but to retreat. Her duty was to protect her crew, and fighting the Krek's ship would be suicide. But she also could not abandon the Valani prisoners. "Hayes, send out a general distress call on all Federation frequencies. Tell any ships in the area that we need immediate military assistance. Captain, the nearest Federation warship is 3 days away, and even our strongest ships are not built to fight something like that Krek's mothership." Jiwan felt helpless. The Federation's peaceful nature was usually their strength, but against enemies like the Kreks, it became a weakness. She wished that someone, somewhere in the galaxy, had the power to stop the raiders and save the innocent people they captured. "Send the distress call anyway," she ordered. "Use all frequencies, not just Federation channels. Maybe someone else will hear it and can help." As the communication officer sent out the emergency signal, Jiwan watched the Krek's mothership on her screen. She could see small ships moving around it like angry insects. Those were probably boarding craft that the Kreks used to capture other ships. "Captain, I'm picking up movement inside the Krek's ship," Hayes reported. "It looks like they're preparing to leave the system." "They're taking the prisoners to the slave markets," Jiwan said quietly. Once the Krek's ship left with the Valani captives, it would disappear into the lawless regions of space where even the Federation could not follow. The Krek's voice came through the communication system again. "Time is up, Federation ship. Leave now, or join your friends in our cargo hold." Jiwan had to make a choice. She could order her ship to retreat and save her crew, but the Valani prisoners would be lost forever. Or she could try to fight and likely get everyone killed for nothing. "Captain," the communication officer said suddenly, "I'm getting a response to our distress call." "From who? What Federation ship?" "That's the strange thing, Captain. It's not from a Federation ship. The signal is coming from outside known space, and I can't identify the ship type. But they're saying they received our message and are responding to assist." Jiwan felt a small spark of hope. "Can you tell how far away they are?" "Based on the signal strength, they should arrive in about 4 hours. The Krek's commander's voice boomed through the speakers again. "We grow tired of waiting. Prepare to be destroyed, Federation fools." Jiwan watched as the massive Krek's ship began to turn its weapons toward the Stellar Grace. In a few minutes, her ship and crew would be nothing but floating debris in space, just like the Harmony's dream. But somewhere in the darkness between the stars, an unknown ship was racing toward them. Jiwan could only hope that whoever was coming would arrive in time to make a difference. Captain Minho sat in his chair on the bridge of the Terra's Wrath, drinking coffee from a metal cup. The ship was quiet as it moved through empty space, far from any known star systems. For 6 months, his crew had been exploring this part of the galaxy, watching and learning about the different species that lived here. The humans had been careful to stay hidden. They wanted to understand this new galaxy before making contact with anyone. What they had learned so far was both interesting and worrying. "Captain," called communications specialist Wanbin from his station. "I'm picking up a distress signal on the emergency frequencies." Minho set down his coffee cup and walked over to Wanbin's station. The young man was one of the best communication experts in the human fleet. If he thought something was important, it usually was. "What kind of signal?" Minho asked. "It's from something called the Galactic Federation. They're asking for military help in the Kepler system. Someone called the Krex has attacked a civilian ship and taken prisoners." Minho had heard about both groups during their months of watching and listening. The Federation seemed to be made up of peaceful species who tried to solve problems by talking instead of fighting. The Krex were the opposite. Raiders who attacked weak ships and stole everything they could. "Play the message," Minho ordered. The bridge speakers filled with the voice of Captain Ji-Wan as she described the attack on the Villani trade ship. Her words were calm, but Minho could hear the worry and anger underneath. "Sir," said Commander Sora from her station nearby, "according to our files, the Villani are a peaceful trading species. They don't have any weapons on their ships." Minho nodded. During their time watching this galaxy, the humans had seen many examples of species that had never learned to fight. It was very different from Earth, where war had been a part of life for thousands of years. "How far away is the Kepler system?" he asked. "About 4 hours at maximum speed," answered Tactical Officer Di-Ho. He was a quiet man who spent most of his time studying the weapons and defenses of the ships they had observed. "And what do we know about this Krex mothership?" Di-Ho pulled up information on his screen. "Based on our observations, Krex ships are large and heavily armed, but their technology is not very advanced. They use energy weapons and particle shields. Their armor is thick but made of simple metals." Chief Engineer Hyeji spoke up from her station. "Captain, our ship is much smaller than a Krex mothership, but our weapons are designed for real war. Everything we've seen in this galaxy is built by species that don't really understand fighting." Minho understood what she meant. The Terra's Wrath was an exploration ship, but it was built by humans who had spent centuries fighting wars on Earth and in space. Even their smallest ships carried weapons that could destroy much larger vessels. "What's the crew count on a typical Krex mothership?" he asked. "Around 2,000 warriors plus any prisoners they've taken," Di-Ho reported. Dr. Yuna, the ship's chief medical officer, looked up from her station. "Captain, if they've taken civilian prisoners, especially children, time is very important. The Krex are known to hurt their captives." Minho had read the reports about Krex slave markets. The idea of children being sold into slavery made him angry in a way that was hard to control. On Earth, protecting children was something that all humans agreed on, no matter what country or group they came from. "Sir," Wanbin said, "the Federation ship is asking for any vessel in the area to respond to their distress call." The bridge was quiet for a moment. The crew of the Terra's Wrath knew that responding would mean revealing themselves to this galaxy. For 6 months, they had been careful to avoid contact while they learned about the local species and their cultures. "What do you think?" Minho asked his officers. Commander Sora was the first to speak. "Sir, our mission is exploration, not getting involved in local conflicts. If we reveal ourselves now, it could change everything." "But those are innocent civilians being taken as slaves," Dr. Yuna said firmly. "We can't just watch when we have the power to help." Tactical Officer Di-Ho looked at his screen. "Captain, one human ship could easily handle a Krex mothership. Their weapons and defenses are primitive compared to ours." Chief Engineer Hyeji nodded. "The Terra's Wrath was built to explore dangerous space. We have enough firepower to fight our way out of almost any situation. Wanbin was listening to more communications. Sir, the Kreks are threatening to destroy the Federation ship if they don't leave. The Federation captain says she can't fight them. Minho thought about the first contact protocols that Earth Command had given him. He was supposed to be careful and diplomatic when meeting new species. But those protocols didn't say anything about what to do when children were being taken as slaves. Wanbin, can we reach the Kepler system before the Kreks ship leaves with the prisoners? If we leave now and push the engines hard, yes, sir. And our weapon systems? All working perfectly, Deho reported. We have full ammunition for the railguns and the fusion torpedoes are ready. Minho made his decision. Hyeji, give me maximum power to the engines. Daiho, start running checks on all weapon systems. Sora, plot the fastest course to the Kepler system. Sir, Commander Sora said carefully. Are you sure about this? Once we reveal ourselves, there's no going back. Minho looked at the star map on the main screen. Somewhere out there, children were scared and hurt, waiting for someone to save them. The Federation ship was trying to help, but didn't have the power to fight the raiders. Wanbin, send a response to the Federation ship. Tell them we're coming to help. What should I tell them about who we are? Just say we're responding. To their distress call, don't give any details about our ship or our capabilities. As Wanbin sent the message, Minho sat back in his captain's chair. He knew that what they were about to do would change everything. The human race was about to announce itself to this galaxy, not as peaceful explorers, but as warriors coming to protect the innocent. Course laid in, Captain, Sora reported. Engine room ready for maximum burn, Hyeji called from her station. All weapon systems online and ready, Deho added. Minho looked around at his crew. These were good people who had volunteered to explore unknown space far from Earth. Now they were about to risk their lives for strangers they had never met. Take us to maximum speed, he ordered. The Terra's wrath began to accelerate, its powerful engines pushing the ship faster and faster through space. Behind them, they left the safety of unknown space. Ahead of them waited their first contact with this galaxy. A contact that would begin not with words of peace, but with the sound of human weapons defending the helpless. As they raced toward the Kepler system, Minho thought about Earth and the long history of human warfare. Humans had learned to fight because they had to. Their planet was dangerous, and their history was full of conflicts. But all of that experience had taught them something important. Sometimes the only way to protect innocent people was to be willing to fight for them. The Terra's wrath flew through space like an arrow aimed at the heart of evil. In a few hours, the Kreks would learn what happened when they threatened civilians while humans were watching. Space around the planet. Kepler 442b was filled with floating pieces of metal and plastic. The remains of the Villani trade ship Harmony's Dream drifted slowly through the darkness, like a sad reminder of what had happened here. Captain Jiwan stood on the bridge of the Stellar Grace, watching the huge Kreks mothership on her main screen. The enemy vessel was at least 5 times larger than her ship, covered with weapon ports and armored plating that looked like it could stop anything the Federation might shoot at it. Captain, reported Commander Hayes, the Kreks ship is moving. Into attack position. Their weapons are charging up. Jiwan felt her heart beating fast. She had hoped that the unknown ship responding to their distress call would arrive in time, but space around them was still empty except for debris and the threatening Kreks vessel. Any word from our mystery rescuer? She asked. Nothing yet, Captain, but wait. The communication officer suddenly sat up straight in his chair. I'm detecting a new ship dropping out of hyperspace. On the main screen, a flash of light appeared in the distance. When it faded, a new ship became visible. It was much smaller than the Krek's mothership, but there was something different about the way it looked. Where Federation ships were smooth and curved, this vessel had sharp angles and heavy armor. Where Krek's ships were covered with spikes and decorations meant to scare enemies, this ship looked clean and efficient, like it was built by people who understood war very well. Unknown vessel, this is Captain Ji-won of the Galactic Federation. She broadcast on all frequencies. Are you the ship that responded to our distress call? The answer came back in a calm, steady voice that somehow made Ji-won feel safer just hearing it. This is Captain Minho of the Terran vessel Terra's Wrath. We received your call for help and came as fast as we could. Please move your ship to a safe distance. We'll handle the situation from here. Ji-won looked at the tactical display. The new ship was only about 800 meters long, tiny compared to the 2-kilometer Krek's mothership. Captain Minho, I appreciate your willingness to help, but that Krek's vessel has enough firepower to destroy both our ships. You should retreat, while you still can. Thank you for the warning, Captain Ji-won, but we've dealt with raiders before. Please stand clear. On the Krek's mothership, Warlord Vexitar was laughing as he watched the small human ship approach. He was a large, ugly creature covered with scars from many battles. Like all Kreks, he believed that bigger always meant stronger. Look at this foolish little ship, he told his crew. It thinks it can challenge the mighty Kreks. We will destroy it quickly and then finish off the Federation vessel. He opened a communication channel to both ships. Tiny ship with the strange name, you have made a big mistake. This system belongs to the Kreks now. Leave immediately, or we will add your crew to our slave collection. Captain Minho's voice came, back over the communication system, still calm and controlled. This is your only warning. Release the prisoners you took from the Vellani ship and surrender. If you refuse, we will stop you. The bridge of the Krek's mothership filled with the sound of harsh laughter. Even the lowest Krek's warrior knew that a small ship like that could never threaten their mighty vessel. Human, Vexitar said, using the word like an insult. Your ship is like a tiny fish trying to threaten a great shark. We have weapons that could turn you into space dust. We have armor that has never been broken. And we have 2,000 warriors ready to board your ship and take your crew as prizes. Commander Sora, Captain Minho said to his first officer, please scan their ship and tell me what we're dealing with. On the Terra's Wrath, Commander Sora worked at her station, using sensors that were far more advanced than anything the Kreks had ever seen. Captain, I'm reading a crew of approximately 2,000 Kreks warriors. Their weapons are energy-based plasma cannons and missile tubes. Their shields are particle-based, and their armor is made of simple steel alloys about 3 meters thick. Any sign of the prisoners? Yes, sir. I'm detecting about 300 Vellani life signs in the cargo holds. They appear to be alive, but probably scared. Tactical Officer Deho looked up from his weapons console. Captain, their technology is very primitive. Our shields could stop their weapons easily, and our guns could cut through their armor like paper. Very well, Minho said quietly. Deho, lock weapons on their engine section. 1 precise shot to disable them. Captain Ji-won watched in confusion as the human ship just sat there, apparently doing nothing. She expected it to either attack or retreat, but instead it seemed to be having a calm conversation about the situation. Warlord Vexitar was getting impatient. Enough talk. All weapons fire on the small ship. Show them what happens to those. Who challenged the Kreks? The Krek's mothership suddenly lit up with weapon fire. Dozens of plasma cannons shot bright green energy beams at the Terra's wrath. Missile tubes launched heavy torpedoes that streaked through space-trailing fire. It was enough firepower to destroy any known Federation ship 3 times over. Captain, G1 closed her eyes, expecting to see the human ship blown apart. But when the energy beams and missiles reached their target, something impossible happened. Small guns on the human ship began firing incredibly fast, shooting metal projectiles that moved so quickly they were hard to see. Every single Krex missile was hit and destroyed before it could reach the Terra's wrath. The plasma beams hit some kind of shield around the human ship and simply bounced off harmlessly. "Impossible!" Vextar roared. "No ship that small could have such defenses." "Their mistake," Captain Minho said calmly. "Deho, you may fire when ready." The human ship fired a single shot. It wasn't a beam of energy or an explosive missile. It was just a simple metal rod, but it was moving so fast that it glowed white-hot from the friction with space dust. The projectile hit the Krex mothership's heavy armor and went through it like it was made of paper. It punched through 3 meters of steel, through the ship's interior, and hit the main engine core at the back of the vessel. The explosion was tremendous. The Krex mothership, which had seemed so powerful and threatening just moments before, broke apart in a chain of secondary explosions. Pieces of the once mighty vessel flew in all directions as the ship died in fire and metal. On the bridge of the Stellar Grace, every member of Captain G1's crew stared at their screens in shock. The most powerful enemy ship they had ever seen had just been destroyed by a single shot from a vessel 1/5 its size. "How is that possible?" Commander Hayes whispered. Captain G1 was wondering the same thing. She had never seen weapons that powerful or defenses that strong. The human ship had made the attack look easy, like an adult dealing with a troublesome child. "Captain Minho," she called over the communication system. "That was incredible. What kind of weapons do you have?" "Standard defensive armament," came the calm reply. "Nothing special by our standards." If this was nothing special, G1 thought, what would their serious weapons look like? "Captain," her communication officer reported, "I'm detecting escape. Pods launching from the debris of the Krex ship." "This is Captain Minho to all Krex survivors," the human captain broadcast. "You will be taken prisoner and turned over to Federation authorities. Any attempt to resist will be met with force." There was no answer from the escape pods. The few Krex who had survived the destruction of their ship were too shocked to do anything but drift in space and wait to be rescued. As Captain G1 watched, the human ship moved to collect the prisoners and survivors. She realized that first contact with this new species had not gone at all like the textbook said it should. Instead of careful diplomatic meetings and cultural exchanges, she had just witnessed the most one-sided space battle in recorded history. Whoever these humans were, they were nothing like the peaceful species of the Federation. They were something new and powerful, and G1 had a feeling that the galaxy was about to change forever. The space around Kepler 442b was now filled with the glowing remains of the Krex mothership. Large pieces of twisted metal drifted slowly through the darkness, still hot from the explosions that had torn the massive vessel apart. Small escape. Pods floated among the debris like tiny seeds scattered by a violent wind. Captain G1 stood on the bridge of the Stellar Grace, still trying to understand what she had just witnessed. Her crew was working quietly at their stations, but she could see the shock and confusion on their faces. They had all watched the human ship destroy the mighty Krex vessel with a single shot, something that should have been impossible. "Captain," Commander Hayes called from his station, The human ship is collecting the escape pods. They're also scanning the debris field. Probably looking for more survivors, Ji-won said. She opened a communication channel to the Terra's Wrath. Captain Minho, this is Captain Ji-won. Do you need any assistance with the rescue operation? Thank you, Captain, but we have the situation under control, came the calm reply. We've detected several Villani life signs among the debris. Our medical team is preparing to receive casualties. Ji-won felt a wave of relief. In all the excitement of the battle, she had almost forgotten about the Villani prisoners who had been taken from the Harmony's dream. How many survivors are there? We count 247 Villani civilians, mostly families with children. There are also 32 Krek survivors in the escape pods. Dr. Yuna's voice came over the communication channel from the Terra's Wrath's medical bay. Captain Ji-won, some of the Villani are injured and traumatized. Would it be possible for your medical team to assist? Our equipment is designed for human physiology. Of course, Ji-won replied immediately. We'll prepare our medical bay and send over our best doctors. An hour later, Captain Ji-won found herself in the transporter room of her ship, preparing to beam over to the human vessel. She had chosen to go personally, both to help with the medical situation and to finally meet these mysterious humans face to face. Are you sure about this, Captain? Commander Hayes asked. We don't know anything about these people or their intentions. They just saved the lives of nearly 300 innocent civilians, Ji-won replied. I think we can trust them. The Saikane transporter beam surrounded her with blue light, and suddenly she was standing in a completely different room. The walls were made of some kind of metal she didn't recognize, and the lighting was brighter and whiter than what Federation ships used. Everything looked clean and efficient, built by people who valued function over decoration. A woman in a military uniform was waiting for her. She was about average height, with dark hair and serious eyes. Despite her small size, there was something about her that suggested she was very dangerous when she needed to be. Captain Ji-won, the woman said with a slight bow. I'm Commander Sora, First Officer of the Terra's Wrath. Captain Minho is in the medical bay helping with the wounded. Please follow me. As they walked through the corridors of the human ship, Ji-won noticed many things that were different from Federation vessels. The hallways were narrower and the ceilings were lower, as if designed for people who didn't mind tight spaces. The walls had information screens every few meters, showing data about the ship's systems in a language she couldn't read. Your ship is very different from ours, Ji-won observed. Human ships are built for efficiency and survival, Commander Sora replied. We come from a world where resources are limited and danger is common. They entered the medical bay, which was larger than Ji-won had expected. Human medical staff in white uniforms were working alongside Federation doctors to treat the Villani survivors. The rescued civilians were small, furry beings with large eyes that showed their gentle nature. Many of the children were clinging to their parents, still scared from their experience as prisoners. A tall human man with captain's stripes on his uniform approached them. He had kind eyes, but a firm jaw that suggested he could be very tough, when necessary. Captain Ji-won, he said, extending his hand in what she recognized as a human greeting gesture. I'm Captain Minho. Thank you for coming to help with the survivors. Ji-won shook his hand, noticing that his grip was strong but not threatening. Thank you for saving them, Captain. That was the most amazing display of military power I've ever seen. We do what we can, Minho replied simply. Dr. Yuna, how are our patients doing? A woman in a white medical coat looked up from where she was treating a young Villani child. Most of the physical injuries are minor. but the psychological trauma will take time to heal. These people have been through a terrible experience. Captain Minho's expression darkened. What exactly did the Kreks do to them? Dr. Yuna's voice was carefully controlled. They separated families, kept people in crowded cargo holds with little food or water, and used fear to control them. The children are especially affected. Ji-won saw something change in the humans around her. Their faces became harder, and she could feel anger radiating from them like heat from a fire. It was a cold, controlled anger that was somehow more frightening than loud shouting would have been. "Captain," she said carefully, "may I ask where you're from? Your ship and weapons are unlike anything in our databases." Minho was quiet for a moment, as if deciding how much to tell her. Finally, he gestured toward a wall screen. "Computer, display Earth." The screen showed a blue and green planet covered with white clouds. It looked beautiful from space, but as the image zoomed in, Ji-won could see things that made her understand why the humans were so different. The continents were marked with lines showing the borders between different nations. Some areas glowed, red, indicating active conflicts. The oceans had ships moving back and forth, many of them clearly designed for warfare. Even from space, it was obvious that this was a world where different groups competed and fought for resources. "We call it Earth," Minho explained. "What your people would probably classify as a death world." Ji-won had heard the term before. Death worlds were planets where life was so difficult and dangerous that most species couldn't survive there. They were rare, and the few species that came from such worlds were usually very different from the peaceful civilizations of the Federation. "How many different groups live on your planet?" she asked. "Currently about 200 independent nations, plus thousands of smaller groups and tribes," Commander Sora answered. "We've been fighting each other for most of our recorded history." "Fighting over what?" "Everything," Minho said simply. "Land, resources, ideas, religion, politics. If humans can disagree about something, we've probably had a war over it." Ji-won tried to imagine what it would be like to grow up on such a world. The Federation species had all achieved peace on their home planets long before they reached space. The idea of constant conflict and competition was difficult for her to understand. "But you're here helping innocent people," she pointed out. "You risked your lives to save the Villani." "That's what makes us human," Dr. Yuna said as she finished treating a patient. "Yes, we fight each other a lot. But when we see innocent people being hurt by bullies, we put aside our differences and work together." Captain Minho nodded. "The Kreks remind us of the worst parts of our own history. We've learned that sometimes the only way to protect peaceful people is to be willing to fight for them." A young Villani child who had been listening to their conversation tugged on Ji-won's uniform. When she looked down, the child said something in his own language. "What did he say?" Minho asked. Ji-won's translation device worked for a moment. "He wants to know if the scary ships are going to come back." Minho knelt down so he was at the child's eye level. Even though they couldn't understand each other's languages, his expression was gentle and reassuring. "Tell him," Minho said to Ji-won, "that the Terra's wrath will make sure no one hurts him or his family again." As Ji-won translated, she realized that she was witnessing something remarkable. These humans were warriors from a world of endless conflict, but they were using their power to protect the innocent. They were exactly what the galaxy needed. Someone strong enough to stand up to predators like the Kreks. Looking around the medical bay at the rescued Villani families and the humans caring for them, Jiwon felt something she hadn't felt in years. For the first time since the Krex raids had begun, she felt hope that maybe the innocent people of the galaxy would finally be safe. But she also wondered what would happen when the rest of the galaxy learned about these powerful newcomers. The humans had just announced their presence by destroying a Krex mothership with a single shot. Word of that would spread quickly, and not everyone would be happy to learn that there was a new power in the galaxy. Change was coming, whether the galaxy was ready for it or not. The medical bay of the Terra's Wrath was busy with activity as human and Federation medical teams worked together to help the rescued Villani. Dr. Yuna moved between patients with quiet efficiency, her medical scanner beeping softly as she checked each survivor. Chief Engineer Hiji had extended the ship's shields around the area where they were collecting escape pods and debris. The energy field protected the rescue workers from dangerous radiation and flying metal pieces while they searched for more survivors. "Captain," Communications Specialist Wan Bin reported from his station, "I'm receiving messages from the Villani survivors. They want to share information about Krex operations in this sector." Captain Minho nodded. "Put me through to their senior representative." An elderly Villani named Thylos appeared on the communication screen. He was the captain of the destroyed trade ship, and despite his recent trauma, his large eyes showed intelligence and determination. "Captain Minho," Thylos said in accented Federation standard, "my people and I owe you our lives, but I must warn you. What happened to us is not unusual. The Krex have been raiding peaceful ships for many months." "How many attacks have there been?" Minho asked. Thylos consulted a small device he was holding. 17 colonies have been hit in the past year. They have taken thousands of our people as slaves. The Federation has tried to help, but their ships cannot fight the Krex motherships." Dr. Yuna looked up from her patient. "Captain, I'm seeing signs of long-term malnutrition and stress in many of these people. Some of them have been prisoners for weeks or even months." Minho felt the familiar cold anger building in his chest. On Earth, taking civilians as slaves was considered one of the worst possible crimes. Wars had been fought to stop such practices, and entire nations had been destroyed for engaging in the slave trade. "Thylos," he said carefully, "do you know where the Krex take their prisoners?" "There are slave markets in the Outer Rim territories," the Villani captain replied. "Systems where no government has authority and where the worst criminals gather to buy and sell sentient beings." Commander Sora was working at her station, analyzing the data they had collected from the destroyed Krex ship. "Captain, I've been studying their communication logs. This was just one of 12 motherships operating in this region. They've been coordinating their attacks and sharing information about vulnerable targets." 12 ships, Minho repeated quietly. That meant thousands more Krex raiders were out there, attacking innocent people and destroying lives. Captain Jiwon, who had been listening to the conversation, stepped forward. "Captain Minho, I need to ask you something important. What are your intentions in this galaxy? Are you planning to establish some kind of military presence here?" It was a good question, and one that Minho had been thinking about since they had responded to the first distress call. The Terra's Wrath was an exploration ship, sent to study new regions of space and make peaceful contact with alien civilizations. But everything they had learned about this galaxy suggested that peaceful contact might not be enough. "Our original mission was exploration and scientific study," he answered honestly. "We were supposed to observe your civilizations and eventually make formal diplomatic contact." "But?" Jiwon prompted. "But we didn't expect to find a situation like this. On Earth, we have a saying, never again. It comes from our history, from times when innocent people were hurt because those with the power to help chose not to act. Dr. Yuna finished treating a young Vellani child and came over to join the conversation. Captain Ji-won, how long have the Kreks been operating in this region? About 2 years, Ji-won replied. At first, they only attacked remote outposts and isolated ships. But they've been getting bolder. Some Federation officials think they're testing our defenses, preparing for larger attacks. What do your military experts recommend? Commander Sora asked. Ji-won's expression was grim. The Federation Council believes that negotiation is the answer. They want to offer the Kreks trade agreements and territorial concessions in exchange for stopping the raids. The humans looked at each other with expressions that Ji-won couldn't quite read. There was something almost like pity in their eyes, as if they had heard this kind of thinking before and knew how it would end. Captain Ji-won, Minho said gently, has that approach ever worked with the Kreks in the past? No, she admitted. Every time we've tried to negotiate, they've seen it as a sign of weakness and increased their attacks. Tactical Officer Deho looked up from his analysis of the Kreks ship data. Captain, based on their communication records, the Kreks view any species that doesn't fight back as natural prey. They don't understand concepts like mercy or negotiation. Then what do you suggest? Ji-won asked. Minho was quiet for a long moment, weighing his options. The Terra's Wrath was just one ship, far from Earth and any possible reinforcements. But they had already revealed themselves to this galaxy, and word of what had happened here would spread quickly. Thylos, he said to the Vellani captain, you said there are 17 colonies that have been attacked. Are there survivors who escaped? Yes, many. They are scattered across Federation space, living in refugee camps. Most have lost family members to the slavers. And the slave markets you mentioned? Do you know their locations? Thylos hesitated. Some of them, yes. But, Captain, those places are heavily defended. Even if you could destroy the Kreks ships there, the slaves have already been sold to buyers from many different species. Yeji had been listening while she worked on extending life support to the rescued Vellani. Captain, with your permission, I'd like to review our mission parameters. Minho nodded and Yeji brought up a holographic display of their original orders from Earth Command. The mission brief was clear. Explore, observe, and make peaceful contact when appropriate. Our orders give us considerable discretion in how we carry out the mission, she pointed out, and there's a clause about protecting human interests and values. Protecting innocent civilians from slavery is definitely a human value, Dr. Yuna added. Captain Ji-won watched this exchange with growing hope. She was beginning to understand that the humans were very different from the Federation species she knew. They seemed to think about problems in terms of action rather than discussion. What are you considering? She asked. Minho looked around at his crew, reading their expressions. He could see that they were all thinking the same thing he was. They had the power to help these people, and with that power came responsibility. Communications Specialist Wanbin, he said, prepare a message to Earth Command. Inform them that we have made contact with local civilizations and discovered an ongoing humanitarian crisis. Request permission to take appropriate action. Sir, Wanbin replied, at this distance it will take 6 months for our message to reach Earth and another 6 months for a reply. Then we'll have to use our best judgment in the meantime. Commander Sora pulled up a star chart showing the local region. Captain, if we're going to do something about the Kreks, we need more information. We should visit some of the refugee camps and talk to survivors. We also need to locate the other Krex motherships. Agreed. Captain G1, would you be willing to guide us to one of the refugee camps? G1 felt a surge of excitement. For the first time since the Krex raids had begun, someone with the power to make a difference was actually planning to take action. I know exactly where to take you, she said. There's a camp on Epsilon Prime with over 2,000 survivors. They have detailed information about Krex operations and tactics. As the Terra's Wrath prepared to leave the Kepler system, the rescued Villani gathered in the ship's main cargo bay to thank their rescuers. Thylos spoke for his people, his voice, carrying the weight of genuine gratitude. Captain Minho and crew of the Terra's Wrath, he said, you have given us back our lives and our freedom. We will never forget what you have done for us. Minho looked out at the crowd of survivors, families reunited, children who would grow up free instead of as slaves, elderly people who would live out their days in peace instead of captivity. Just remember, he told them, that there are still thousands of people out there who need help. Tell everyone you meet that the Terra's Wrath is here, and that we're going to make sure this kind of thing stops happening. As the human ship jumped to hyperspace, heading for the refugee camps where they would learn the true scope of the Krex threat, Captain G1 felt something she hadn't experienced in years. For the first time since the raids had begun, she believed that the galaxy's innocent people might finally have protectors strong enough to keep them safe. The humans had come to explore, but they were staying to fight. And that, G1 thought, might change everything. Deep in the lawless regions of space known as the Outer Rim, Warlord Supreme Torgak stood in the command center of his flagship, the Iron Fang. He was the largest and most dangerous of all the Krex leaders, with scars covering his face and arms from 100 battles. For 20 years, he had led the Krex raids that had terrorized peaceful species across the galaxy. Tell me again what happened to Vextar's ship, he growled at the communication officer. The smaller Krex warrior trembled as he spoke. Warlord Supreme, the Bloodfang was destroyed in the Kepler system. A single unknown ship attacked them and destroyed the entire mothership with one shot. Torgak's claws scraped against the metal railing as he gripped it in anger. The Bloodfang had been one of his most powerful ships, with enough weapons to destroy an entire Federation fleet. The idea that it had been destroyed by a single enemy vessel was almost impossible to believe. What do we know about this unknown ship? Very little, sir. The few survivors say it was much smaller than the Bloodfang, but its weapons were more powerful than anything they had ever seen. They call themselves humans, and they claim to come from something called Earth. Torgak had never heard of either humans or Earth, but that didn't matter. What mattered was that someone had dared to attack a Krex ship and kill Krex warriors. In all his years of raiding, no one had ever seriously challenged the Krex military might. How many ships do these humans have? He demanded. Unknown, sir. We have only confirmed the existence of one vessel. One ship, Torgak repeated slowly. One ship destroyed the Bloodfang and killed 2,000 of our warriors. He turned to face the other Krex commanders who had gathered in his command center. These were the leaders of the remaining 11 motherships, each one a veteran raider with hundreds of successful attacks to their credit. Brothers, he announced, his voice carrying across the room, we face a new enemy. Someone has dared to challenge the might of the Krex Dominion. They have killed our warriors and freed our slaves. The other commanders growled and snarled their anger. To the Krex, strength was everything, and anyone who challenged their strength was challenging their right to exist. What are your orders? Warlord Supreme? Asked Commander Grixtal. leader of the mothership Bone Crusher. "We will gather the entire fleet," Torgak declared. "All 12 remaining ships, 30,000 warriors. We will hunt down this human vessel and destroy it. Then we will attack their home world and show the galaxy what happens to those who interfere with Krek's business." 3 days later, the largest Krek's war fleet in history assembled in empty space near the border of Federation territory. 12 massive motherships floated in formation, their hulls bristling with weapons and their holds filled with eager warriors. Each ship was over 2 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to level entire cities. Meanwhile, the Terra's Wrath had delivered the rescued Vellani civilians to Federation space and was now visiting the refugee camp on Epsilon Prime. Captain Minho and his crew were learning the true scope of the Krek's threat from survivors who had escaped from 17 different attacks. "The pattern is always the same," explained Dr. Kesta, a Vellani scientist who had been studying the raids. "They attack without warning, disable the ship's engines so no one can escape, and then take anyone who might be valuable as slaves." "What kind of people do they target?" asked Dr. Yuna. "Young adults who can work hard, children who can be trained, and anyone with technical skills," Dr. Keseta replied sadly. "They leave behind the elderly and sick to die." Captain Jiwan had been working with the human crew to coordinate Federation response efforts. "Captain Minho, we've identified the locations of 3 major slave markets in the Outer Rim. If we could attack those facilities, we would free thousands of people," Minho finished. "But we'd also be announcing to every criminal organization in the galaxy that Earth ships are operating in this region." Communications specialist Wanbin looked up from his station. "Captain, I'm receiving an urgent message from Federation Central Command. They're reporting massive Krex fleet movements near the core worlds." The main screen showed a tactical display of Federation space. Red dots indicated Krex ships moving toward populated star systems, while blue dots showed Federation vessels trying to respond. "How many Krex ships?" Commander Sora asked. 12 motherships, sir. It's their entire remaining fleet." Captain Jiwan felt her blood turn cold. "They're coming for revenge. They want to punish the Federation for helping you destroy the Bloodfang." "The Federation worlds don't have the military strength to fight 12 motherships," Minho observed. "No," Jiwan admitted. "Our largest fleet has 7 cruisers, and they're not built for major combat operations." Tactical Officer Deho was studying the enemy formation. "Captain, the Krex ships are spreading out to attack multiple systems simultaneously. They're planning to hit civilian targets across a wide area." "Classic terror tactics," Minho said grimly. "They want to cause as much fear and destruction as possible." Dr. Yuna looked up from her medical reports. "Captain, if they attack civilian populations, we're looking at millions of casualties." Hieji ran some quick calculations on her engineering console. "Sir, at maximum speed we could reach the first target system in 18 hours, but we'd only be able to defend 1 location at a time." "1 ship against 12, Commander Sora pointed out. "Even with our technological advantages, those odds are challenging." Lieutenant Garum, who had been monitoring long-range communications, suddenly spoke up. "Captain, I'm detecting a new transmission from the Krex fleet. It's being broadcast on all frequencies." The bridge speakers filled with the harsh voice of Warlord Supreme Torgak. "People of the Federation, you have made a grave mistake. You helped the humans destroy one of our ships and free our rightful property. Now you will pay the price for your interference." The message continued with graphic descriptions of what the Krex planned to do to Federation worlds. They intended to destroy orbital stations, capture millions of civilians as slaves, and turn entire planets into examples of what happened to those who oppose the Krex dominion. People of this galaxy, Torgak concluded, know that this destruction comes to you because you chose to help our enemies. Remember this lesson when next you think to challenge the might of the Krex. When the message ended, the bridge of the Terra's wrath was silent for a long moment. Captain Minho looked around at his crew and saw determination in their eyes. These were people who had volunteered to explore unknown space, but they understood that sometimes exploration had to wait while more important work was done. Captain Ji-won, Minho said, can your ship coordinate the evacuation of civilian populations from the target systems? We can try, but there's not much time. The Krex fleet will reach the first targets in less than 20 hours. Then we'd better get moving. Minho turned to his crew. Hyeji, I want maximum power to the engines. Daiho, begin preparing all weapon systems for extended combat operations. Sora, plot an intercept course for the lead Krex ships. Sir, Wanbin said carefully. Should I send a message to Earth Command informing them of the situation? Minho thought about it for a moment. Earth was too far away to send help, and by the time any message reached home, this crisis would be long over, one way or another. Send the message, he decided. Tell them that the Terra's wrath is engaging a hostile fleet in defense of civilian populations. Include all our tactical data about Krex capabilities. As the human ship accelerated toward its rendezvous with the Krex war fleet, the crew prepared for the biggest battle of their lives. They were outnumbered 12-1 by an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for years. But they were also the children of Earth, trained in the hardest school of warfare in the known universe. Captain, Dr. Yuna said quietly, do you really think we can win against those odds? Minho looked at the tactical display showing 12 red dots converging on helpless civilian targets. Somewhere in those target systems, families were going about their daily lives, unaware that slave raiders were coming for them. Doctor, he replied, we're not going to win. We're going to completely destroy them, because that's what you do to bullies and slavers. You make sure they can never hurt innocent people again. The Terra's wrath raced through space toward its appointment with destiny, carrying the hopes of millions of innocent people and the fury of a species that had learned long ago that sometimes the only way to protect the weak was to utterly crush those who preyed upon them. The command conference room aboard the Terra's wrath was quiet, except for the soft humming of the ship's engines. Captain Minho sat at the head of the table, looking at the tactical display that showed 12 red dots moving toward Federation, space like a swarm of angry insects. His senior officers were gathered around the table. Commander Sora, with her calm, analytical mind, Tactical Officer Daiho, who understood weapons better than anyone, Chief Engineer Hyeji, who kept their ship running perfectly, Dr. Yuna, who saved lives every day, and Communication Specialist Wanbin, who connected them to the galaxy. Let's review what we're facing, Minho said, pointing to the display. 12 Krex motherships, each one carrying about 2,500 warriors. That's 30,000 enemies total, not counting support crew. Their ships are heavily armored. And well-armed, Daiho added. Each mothership has enough firepower to destroy several Federation worlds. What are our tactical options? Commander Sora asked. Daiho pulled up detailed scans of the Krex fleet formation. They're spreading out to attack 6 different star systems simultaneously. Classic terror tactics. Maximum psychological impact with minimal risk of organized resistance. Which also means they've divided their forces, Hyeji observed. Instead of one concentrated fleet, we're looking at 6 groups of 2 ships each. Dr. Yuna looked uncomfortable. Captain, I have to ask, are we really going to attack 12 enemy ships with just our vessel? The Terra's wrath is powerful, but we're still just one ship. It was a fair question, and one that Minho had been wrestling with since they'd learned about the Krek's retaliation. The smart military move would be to retreat and wait for reinforcements from Earth. But the nearest human ships were months away, and millions of innocent people would die while they waited. Dr. Yuna, he said quietly, 6 months ago, when we left Earth, what did you think our biggest challenge would be? Learning to communicate with alien species, she replied. Maybe dealing with hostile environments or unknown diseases. I thought we'd be mapping star systems and studying alien cultures, Wanbin added. And I expected to be analyzing exotic technologies and new scientific principles, Hyeji said. Commander Sora nodded. We all came here to explore and learn. None of us signed up to fight a war. But here we are, Minho said. And the question isn't what we expected to do, it's what we need to do now. Daiho was studying the enemy fleet movements. Captain, if we're going to engage them, we need to be smart about it. 12 ships is a lot, but they're not thinking like soldiers. They're thinking like raiders. Explain. Raiders want easy targets and quick victories. They avoid fair fights and retreat when they encounter serious resistance. But these Kreks have been so successful for so long that they've become overconfident. Hyeji leaned forward. You're thinking we can use their arrogance against them. Exactly. They see one small ship and they think it's an easy target. They won't expect us to attack aggressively or use advanced tactics. Dr. Yuna was looking at casualty projections on her medical tablet. The intelligence reports say they plan to capture millions of civilians as slaves. If we don't stop them, entire species could be driven to extinction. Minho thought about Earth and the long history of human conflict. Humans had fought each other for thousands of years, but they had also learned something important from all that warfare. Sometimes, fighting was the only way to protect innocent people from those who wanted to hurt them. Wanbin, have we received any response from Earth Command about our situation? No, sir. At this distance, our messages take 6 months each way. We're completely on our own. Then we'll have to make our own decisions. Minho looked around the table at his officers. I want each of you to speak honestly. Do you think we should engage the Krek's fleet? Commander Sora spoke first. Sir, from a purely military standpoint, the odds are against us. But we've seen what our weapons can do against their technology. One-on-one, we're vastly superior. The ship can handle the stress of extended combat, Hyeji reported. Our weapon systems are designed for much more intense fighting than anything we've done so far. Daiho nodded. Captain, I've been analyzing Krek's tactics for weeks. They're brutal and effective against weak opponents, but they have no experience fighting against superior technology or trained military personnel. Dr. Yuna was quiet for a moment before speaking. I've been treating the survivors of Krek's attacks. I've seen children who wake up screaming from nightmares, adults who may never recover from what was done to them. If we have the power to prevent that from happening to others, don't we have an obligation to act? Wanbin looked around the table. I've been monitoring Federation communications. Their fleets are scrambling to evacuate civilian populations, but they don't have enough ships or time. Millions of people are trapped in the target systems. So we're all in agreement? Minho asked. We go after the Krek's fleet? Yes, sir, came the unanimous reply. All right, then. Daiho, I want you to develop a battle plan that maximizes our advantages and minimizes our exposure to concentrated enemy fire. I've already been working on that, Captain. If we attack the dispersed groups, individually we can engage 2 ships at a time instead of facing the entire fleet at once. Hyeji pulled up engineering schematics. I can give you full power to weapons and engines simultaneously, but only for limited periods. We'll need to make each engagement quick and decisive. How quick? Minho asked. Ideally, no more than 10 minutes per battle. Any longer and we risk overloading critical systems. Commander Sora was studying star charts. Captain, if we move fast enough, we can hit 3 separate groups before they reach their targets. That would cut their effective strength in half. And the other 3 groups? We'll have to hope that eliminating half their fleet will convince the rest to retreat. Dr. Yuna looked worried. What if they don't retreat? What if destroying 6 of their ships just makes them angrier? Minho's expression grew cold. Then we destroy the other 6 ships too. The meeting continued for another hour as they refined their battle plans and prepared for the most dangerous mission any of them had ever undertaken. When they were finished, Minho dismissed his officers to prepare their departments for combat. As they filed out of the conference room, Dr. Yuna lingered behind. Captain, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we had just continued our exploration mission? If we had avoided getting involved in local conflicts? Minho looked out the conference room, window at the stars rushing past. Every day. But then I think about those Villani children we rescued, and I remember something my grandfather told me when I was young. What was that? He said that evil succeeds when good people choose to do nothing. The Kreks have been terrorizing innocent people for years because no one was strong enough to stop them. We have that strength, Dr. Yuna. And with strength comes responsibility. Even if it costs us our lives, especially then. Because if we don't stand up for those who can't protect themselves, who will? As Dr. Yuna left to prepare the medical bay for possible casualties, Minho remained alone in the conference room looking at the tactical display. 12 enemy ships carrying 30,000 warriors were racing toward defenseless civilian targets. In a few hours, the Terra's wrath would begin the most important battle in its history. The humans had come to this galaxy as explorers and scientists, but when faced with evil that threatened innocent people, they were about to show the universe. What happened when the children of Earth went to war? The Terra's wrath accelerated toward its first target, its crew united in purpose and determined to prove that sometimes one ship crewed by people who refused to surrender could change the fate of an entire galaxy. The space around the planet Harmony was filled with fire and destruction. 3 Federation cruisers floated dead in the void, their hulls torn open by Krek's weapons. Orbital stations that had taken decades to build were now expanding clouds of radioactive debris. Emergency signals filled all communication frequencies as civilian ships tried desperately to escape the system. 2 massive Krek's motherships, the Skullbreaker and the Painbringer, moved slowly through the wreckage like predators, savoring their victory. Their weapon ports glowed red-hot from the destruction they had unleashed, and their cargo holds were already being prepared to receive thousands of new slaves. On the bridge of the Skullbreaker, Commander Grixtal watched the fleeing civilian ships with satisfaction. "Let some of them escape," he ordered his weapons officer. "Fear spreads faster than death. We want the entire galaxy to know what happens to those who help our enemies." The communication system crackled with an incoming transmission from Warlord, Supreme Torgok aboard the Iron Fang. "Grixtal, what is your status?" "The orbital defenses have been eliminated, Supreme Leader. We are beginning the harvest of civilians. The Federation fleet offered no real resistance. Excellent. When you have filled your cargo holds, proceed to the next target system. We will show this galaxy that no one challenges the Krex and survives. As Grixtal prepared to respond, his sensor officer suddenly looked up in alarm. Commander, I'm detecting a new ship dropping out of hyperspace. Small vessel, unknown configuration. On the main screen, a flash of light announced the arrival of the Terra's Wrath. The human ship appeared at the edge of the system, its hull dark against the star field, except for the running lights that marked it as a vessel of exploration, not war. Grixtal laughed when he saw the size of the newcomer. Another Federation ship come to die for their weak allies. Target that vessel and destroy it quickly. But before his weapons could fire, the communication system filled with a calm human voice that somehow cut through all the emergency signals and distress calls. This is Captain Minho of the Terran vessel Terra's Wrath. Krex vessels, you are ordered to cease your attack on civilian targets and surrender immediately. The bridge of the Skullbreaker erupted in harsh laughter. A ship less than 1/10 their size was ordering them to surrender. Even for the arrogant Federation, this was beyond belief. Human, Grixtal broadcast back, you have come to the wrong place at the wrong time. This system belongs to the Krex now. Flee while you still can or join these pathetic Federation ships as scrap metal. This is your final warning, came the reply. Release any prisoners you have taken and withdraw from this system. Final warning? Grixtal snarled. I will give you a final warning, little human. Watch as we destroy every ship in this system, and know that your people will be next. The two Krex motherships turned toward the Terra's Wrath, their massive weapon arrays charging for a devastating combined attack. Each ship carried enough firepower to turn a small moon into asteroids. Together, they could destroy anything the Federation had ever built. On the bridge of the Terra's Wrath, Captain Minho watched the enemy ships approach with calm efficiency. Daiho, are you ready? All weapon systems online and locked on target, the tactical officer reported. Enemy ships are moving into optimal firing position. Hieji, power levels. All systems at 100%, Captain. We're ready for full combat operations. The Krex ships opened fire first, launching a barrage of plasma torpedoes and energy beams that lit up space like an artificial sunrise. It was enough concentrated firepower to vaporize a space station or crack the surface of a planet. But the Terra's Wrath was not a Federation ship built for peaceful exploration. It was a vessel designed by humans who had spent centuries perfecting the art of warfare. Point defense railguns fired streams of depleted uranium projectiles at nearly the speed of light, intercepting and destroying every single Krex weapon before it could reach its target. The energy beams that did get through struck the ship's deflector shields and simply bounced off harmlessly, their primitive energy dissipating into space like water off a duck's back. Impossible! Grixtal roared. No ship that small could have such defenses. Their mistake, Captain Minho said quietly. Daiho, you may fire when ready. The Terra's Wrath's response was swift and devastating. Fusion torpedoes launched from concealed tubes, each one containing the explosive power of a small star. The weapons moved so fast that the Krex sensors couldn't track them until it was too late. The first torpedo struck the Painbringer directly amidships, punching through meters of armor like it was paper and detonating deep inside the ship's hull. The massive Krex vessel broke apart in a chain of secondary explosions, its reactor core adding to the destruction as it went critical. The second fusion torpedo hit the Skullbreaker's engine section, turning the ship's own power source against it. Grixtel had just enough time to scream in rage and disbelief before his flagship joined its sister ship as expanding debris. The entire engagement lasted less than 2 minutes. Captain Jiwon, who had arrived in the system aboard a Federation rescue ship, watched in amazement as the two Krex motherships were reduced to glowing wreckage. "How is that possible?" she whispered. "Practice," came Captain Minho's voice over the communication system. "We're moving to assist with rescue operations. Do you need medical support?" As the Terra's Wrath began collecting escape pods and helping Federation ships rescue survivors, word of the battle spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. In the other target systems, Krex commanders received reports that 2 of their motherships had been destroyed by a single unknown vessel. On the Iron Fang, Warlord Supreme Torgak listened to the panicked reports with growing fury and disbelief. "How many human ships attacked them?" "Just one, Supreme Leader. The same vessel that destroyed the Bloodfang." "One ship cannot destroy 2 motherships. Your reports are wrong." But deep down, Torgak knew the reports were accurate. Somehow, impossibly, a single enemy vessel was systematically destroying the most powerful fleet the Krex had ever assembled. Over the next 6 hours, the pattern repeated itself across 3 more star systems. The Terra's Wrath would appear without warning, demand the surrender of Krex forces, and then utterly annihilate any ship that refused. Fusion torpedoes and kinetic projectiles tore through Krex armor like it was made of cloth. Energy weapons that had terrorized the galaxy for years couldn't even scratch the human ship's shields. By the end of the day, 8 Krex motherships had been destroyed, and the remaining 4 were in full retreat toward the lawless regions of space. The largest and most feared raider fleet in galactic history had been broken by a single human vessel. In the aftermath, Captain Jiwon led a Federation delegation to the Terra's Wrath to thank the humans for their intervention. She found Captain Minho in his ready room, reviewing damage reports and casualty lists. "Captain," she said as she entered, "I wanted to personally thank you for what you've done. You've saved millions of lives today." Minho looked up from his reports. Despite the overwhelming victory, his expression was somber. "We did what needed to be done, Captain Jiwon, but I wish it hadn't been necessary. The Krex have been terrorizing this galaxy for years. No one has ever been able to stop them before. That's because no one was willing to speak the only language. They understand," Commander Sora said as she joined them. "Violence and strength." Dr. Yuna entered the ready room carrying a medical tablet. "Captain, I've been analyzing the data from the destroyed Krex ships. We've confirmed the locations of 3 major slave markets in their communication logs." "How many prisoners?" Minho asked. "Thousands, sir, including many of the people taken in raids over the past 2 years. Captain Jiwon felt a surge of hope. "You're planning to free them?" "We're planning to eliminate the slave trade entirely," Minho replied. "But first, we need to send a message to the galaxy." He activated the ship's main communication system, broadcasting on all frequencies used by the major civilizations in the region. His voice carried the quiet authority of someone who had just proven that his words were backed by unstoppable force. "This is Captain Minho of the Terran vessel Terra's Wrath, addressing all inhabited systems in this galaxy. Today, the Krex Raider fleet was destroyed while attempting to attack civilian populations. 8 motherships and 20,000 raiders have been eliminated." The message continued, reaching every communication receiver from the core worlds to the Outer Rim territories. "Let this serve as notice to all who would prey upon the innocent. Earth has entered this galaxy, and we will not tolerate the enslavement or murder of peaceful peoples." But Captain Ji-won said quietly, surely you can't police the entire galaxy with one ship. Minho smiled for the first time since the battle had begun. Who said anything about one ship? Communications specialist Wanbin looked up from his station. Captain, I'm receiving a priority message from Earth Command. They're responding to our earlier reports about the situation in this galaxy. Put it through. The holographic display showed Admiral Park, the commanding officer of Earth's deep space exploration fleet. She was a stern woman with silver hair and the bearing of someone who had spent decades making difficult decisions. Captain Minho, she said, we've received your reports about the humanitarian crisis.